Today we're going to have some fun with mixing snares to make them sound angry, gritty, and explosive, and it's a really easy trick. Let's jump into it. Hello and thanks for tuning in. My name is Malcolm Owen-Flood and I'm going to teach you how to do some mixing today. Please do click subscribe if you like mixing and recording tips in general. But today we're going to be talking about snare mixing and just one simple trick, just one easy thing that can sometimes be the perfect little flavor you need to make kind of a boring snare sound more exciting. And there's multiple ways to pull this off. As always, this is just one way, but I think it's a way that people will relate to, especially if you don't want to use samples to do this. You can try this approach instead. So I've got a session loaded up. Let's try it out. So I think the first thing I'll do is show you actually where the drum mix ended up on this song. It's a song called Floating Stone by a band called Vogue Villains. They actually just released this song. Go check them out. Great band. And we ended up with a pretty cool drum sound. Check this out. Really fun drum setup. I think we only had 10 mics available when we actually did the recording of this in the jam space. We kind of built a little studio there and tracked it there. So it was kind of like this hybrid DIY, but bringing me in to engineer and produce and ultimately mix it as well. But doing it in their space was really fun. But we had limited gear. So yeah, only I think 10 channels, maybe 11. Can't really remember. A couple things going on there that I'll just kind of fly by, and then we'll get into how I think you could pull this off without doing it the way I did here. Because what you can hear is the snare is exciting. And there's that kind of like 80s like thing happening. And that's the first thing we'll look at. It's a clap. So now listen for that in the mix. There you go. So that's cool. We'll mute that out now. Just the snare. Now, the excitement I got out of this snare had a lot to do with samples. I layered a bunch of different samples. We got this distortion sample going on, a room mic sample going on, and even a snare bottom kind of sound. Because with our limited inputs for recording drums, I think I opted not to record a snare bottom. So I had to use a sample whenever I really wanted that sound to kind of complete our snare sound. So our OG snare mic, this is what that sounds like. Which I gotta say, I think sounds really great. Let's turn off the reverb on that. So very tight, very gated as well, which is kind of part of the drum sound we wanted for this album. Like every close mic is pretty hard gated. So it's very impacty and like pumpy. So that is intentional if you're not used to that kind of sound. I personally love it, especially on this album. And that does sound cool. Again, the OG snare. It's pretty sweet. And if I just mute out all of our samples and play that with the whole drum sound. It's cool, but it's kind of polite in the scheme of things, especially if we were to add in instruments. Not going to cut it, I don't think. So here is the cool little easy trick to just make it more exciting. And I want to give some credit where credit is due. First person that really conveyed how awesome this can be to me was a guy named Jacob Hansen, who you may or may not be familiar with. Fantastic mixer, fantastic engineer, fantastic producer. Just also a great guy, my favorite Denmark resident. Okay, snare, we're going to call it Snare Dirty. Now, I've taken off all the plugins on this, so this is just kind of the OG, but I'm going to copy the gate down, just keep that clean. So that's the snare, just as it is, no processing other than the gate. Now, the gate's going to be very necessary because the next thing we're going to do is grab some distortion. The one that I really like is this Black Op distortion, again, put onto me by Jacob Hansen. And it's just real simple, throw it on. It's so ugly sounding. I like this on vocals, I like it on guitars, I like it on drums. It just, if you want to make something uglier, this is the tool. So we're going to keep listening to just this duplicate snare track that we have here. Definitely ugly, right? And we can make that sharper or kind of duller with this cut knob. Now let's compare that to our regular snare. Back to the dirty. Tons of mid-range happening there. Now let's try blending it in. So I'm bringing it up. So that sounds cool, but I want it to be a little more open. If we're listening to just the dirty again, it's really short still, like our original snare. So I'm going to elongate our gate, maybe the hold as well here, which is going to introduce bleed as an unfortunate artifact, but I think it's going to be worth it. And go back to the original, back to the dirty. Cool. Now let's just listen to our drum sound, and I'm going to fade in that dirty snare as we go. Cool. I think it's kind of adding some excitement. Uglier, but I like that. Let's try taking it a step further. And let's try throwing Devil Lock on there as well. This might be way too much. I'm going to solo that again. So even uglier. And let's see how that sounds with the whole drum set. So tucked really low like that, it almost does the bottom snare thing a little bit for me because it's all crispy sizzle. So that was with it, now without it. Back in. It's cool. It's more mid-rangey, more ugly, more vibey. Up to you if you think that is better or worse for the particular song and drum beat. It's definitely not something I use every mix, but common enough that I thought it was worth sharing because sometimes you just need to make something boring more interesting. And in this case, I actually really like that original snare. I don't know if this would be necessary compared to the blend that I managed to get out of our samples. I think that's more interesting and more appropriate for the song. Now let's try the samples and the distortion snare. That's kind of cool. And obviously you could go way further, EQ after the distortion or carve out more top end or whatever you need just to make that more exciting. But the fact of the matter is when you distort something that heavily, you're going to end up with this really, like you're kind of forcing some more room and like the rim and shell and snare wires, everything that a mic could hear is getting squeezed together and you're kind of forcing it out of that channel. You can do the same thing with room mics and really anything. It's just a matter of if it sounds good to you or not. So I personally love distortion. That's how I do it. It's usually just throw on that plugin, get it really close, and then probably an EQ or something after that just to kind of finesse it into fitting with that main snare track. So just like you would do drum samples, always make it fit your live drums if you have to. If you can, I should say. All right, again, check out Standout Mixes down below. That is a free resource again. And if you want a free one-on-one coaching call, there's also a link for that if you want to level up your mixing or recording or anything audio related, really. Do check that out. And don't forget to check out the Self-Recording Band podcast while you're at it. Okay, till next time, take care.